Hello everybody and welcome back to another photo critique. I'm Toby.
And I'm Christina.
We are on our second to last, our penultimate photo critique from that group that was submitted way back in October, end of October. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so what did you think about this little experiment? I was very negative about it from the beginning.
Are you asking me or are you asking people out there to comment?
No, I'm asking you.
Oh, I enjoy being able to say we're going to critique all of these photos because I don't know how people feel, but I certainly feel bad when people submit photos, especially if we see similar photos or the same person submitting photos again and again and they don't get picked for critiques because there's a lot. And as you can see, it's taken us quite a while at this rate to go through. We've had a lot of feedback from the folks watching to go back to the longer format and more pictures. I think what we're going to do...
That still wouldn't mean that we would get to do all of them,
no
matter how long we'd spend. And,
right.
Yeah.
I think there is more value. I agree with you that there is more value in picking certain ones to talk about for various reasons other than... because we get a little repetitive at times when we just... let everyone that has submitted in because there might be some pictures that have very similar things to say about them. Like there's a distracting object. Maybe our first picture we're going to critique today. I hear your criticism of this critique.
Well,
that was very meta, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Critiquing the critique?
I guess. I think that this worked out well, but yeah, as much as I would love to be able to critique everybody's, I just don't think that it's realistic to hold yourself to that expectation.
Right.
And, some weeks we'll review some people's and some weeks we'll review others.
Right. And I think we're gonna look at, no format is set in stone. We're gonna look at adjustments and changes for the new year and some new options. And I would also really like folks who are watching this right now, let me know, to offer up portfolio critiques so that people could submit a gallery or a portfolio of work, somebody who is trying to, I think mostly targeted people who are trying to build a business, but also just people who want to showcase their best pictures and talk a little bit about the design of the gallery and how it works with the pictures and the flow and how many are you showing, what kind of methods, what service you use. All of that can factor in on how well your work is presented. And I think you, Christina, especially have a lot of experience in setting up galleries and figuring out what is best, both with your own and work you've done in the past with web stuff. And as running your own business as well too, I think. So we have a lot of experience there that we can share with folks and help them out.
Great. So we'll keep you posted on what we decide.
We will. Now, let's jump into this week's images, and we are going to start right here with this one. And let's make this a little bit cleaner. Oh, and right now I have that. Should we leave that up there? I forget about that.
I guess we can leave it.
Let's leave it for a minute.
Sure.
And now I kind of hinted at this. The first thing I notice is the egret. And we've got some great light on the egret. We have some great rim lighting. The egret is being lit here from the kind of like top left corner, I would say, and really outlines him and makes him stand out from this darker background and this nice splash of light that he's moving through. All that's really great. This leaf, however, is very prominent, in focus enough, very dark, especially against this brighter patch, that it continues to draw my eye away from the egret and detracts from this image. It's possible to clone it out, but I think it wouldn't be easy, but it's certainly possible. You might have to only clone a little bit out and then crop in a little. Because this egret could be a little bit more to the left, a little bit more rule of thirds and moving in. And I think that would be nice too. We got some junk here as well. So this leaf gone, ideally before you shot, if you could have adjusted your position a little bit. You probably wanted to try to capture him right as he was moving through this sunspot. If that was true, you did a really nice job of that. But that leaf is distracting. Another thing I'm curious about is coming down just a little bit. So we're a little bit more on level with the egret, and the grass is sloping a little away more horizontally. I think might also make this a little bit stronger image, as long as the background isn't super distracting.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the other things that getting down when you're shooting in kind of spotty, dappled light situations, and this is a tip that I learned from my friend Steve Holmes, who's a wedding photographer. He shoots in all kinds of lighting conditions, including dappled lighting. And one of the ways that he deals with it is he gets down really low on the ground, and that kind of compresses all of the larger spots and makes them look kind of like thinner lines. So I think that's what would, I think that would happen in this situation as well. Of course, you'd have to count on a fairly good background, but my guess is that since the light is so dark in the background, or it seems to fall into darkness as you go further back, that it would be a pretty easy thing to kind of disguise. Plus, you're at 140 millimeters, so you would probably be, the background would probably be pretty soft. But of course, we don't know what this whole scene looks like. But I do agree a lot about the leaf on the left. It's really, really distracting to me as well. And actually, I think this patch of light, while it creates a really nice rim light on the egret, I do think that it's pretty, to me, it's distracting because it's just such a stark contrast from everything that's over here. And even the egret, the part of the egret that's shaded is very dark. So I think, when you're in dappled lighting situations, I would try getting down in the future, and that would help sort of make that super bright spot of sun a little bit, smaller and not as visible in the frame. I will commend you on your choice of settings, because you could have very easily overexposed this shot, because there's so much, the change from light to dark is so drastic. So great exposure. You have a lot of flexibility here in terms of playing with your shadows and your highlights, and kind of, I'm kind of overdoing it right now, but you can see how much play you have with this image.
Right, and we're limited a little bit because we're working with a JPEG here. Right. But one of the things I was going to show is, as I start to brought the highlights down, I was not happy about some that was lost on the edge of the egret. So using your brush, you can brush in a specific area some control. And so you could come down here, and also you can use your bracket keys. Let me make this up where you can see it. Bracket keys to make it bigger or smaller. And then you can brush down here in this highlighted area. So it's still, I disagree, Christina. I think that it may have been a little too bright, but this patch of light was neat. The egret was captured as he was walking through the patch, and because the exposure is good, I don't mind the difference in light, but you can use that highlights to tone it down some without losing the highlights up here. 18 to 140 lens, getting a little muddy out here. I also noticed that we're at ISO 3200, so we're definitely getting a little bit of noise, but it's still within the realm of acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. This is 3200. I didn't even notice that, but I'd just like to point out 3200, and
well, this is good.
You can't really tell noise from back here. I wouldn't have been able to tell that.
I think this is really good. I get a lot of questions about this, and actually we're going to talk more about it on the podcast this week about higher ISO images. We zoom in, you can certainly see that there is noise, but if this was printed 4x6, 5x7, 8x10, you could not
tell the difference.
Noise would not be an issue in this image. I think a lot of people go to 100% and say, "Oh my God, this image is noisy." And this is the D7100, which is, a modern camera, good sensor. And the truth is that, yes, even our $3,000 cameras look noisy when you zoom in. in some exposures, and in other exposures it's hidden better.
Right. But are
Or
you
not
going
as
to be
present.
able to, the question is, do you look at the picture when you print it, when you frame it, when you're even on your screen, do you look at it while it's zoomed in? Probably not.
No.
So,
But what everybody does, I think, especially I remember spending a lot of time zooming in when I was first starting and saying, "Oh my God, this looks terrible," and really expecting more from my
yeah,
camera. So
yeah.
it was good. Kuruvella. Kuru, Kuruvilla. I should have just not tried to pronounce it. And said, "Thank you so much for your egret picture. We're moving on."
Cool. I really love the framing in this image. It's
It could have been one submitted for our natural framing.
yeah, it's really nice. I don't think I have any feedback. I mean, I think if I were to get really nitpicky, I would like maybe try to clone this little path out just to make it look a little bit more overgrown here, because that takes my eye away from this a little bit, makes it look a little bit less like wild. And the other thing that I would do, which this is a matter of personal taste, but I would just like to show everybody, and this is something that you do with your images too, Toby, is that you like
Has this turned
don't
into a Toby critique?
no, you I see you take these images from camera and just share them out immediately without doing any retouching. And you do it less now, less often now, but you used to do it a lot. And I just like to I don't know, I don't think that there has been any treatment applied to this image. So I'm just going to do a really quick tweak. And bear in mind that this is a JPEG image, so I'm not really able to get the kind of results that I would be able to get with a raw image.
Now, what were you looking for right now when you just adjusted temp and tint, or are you going to tell us?
Well, to me, it just looked. I'm gonna just do. Whoops. There we go. Before and after. So it looked a little bit blue to me. Like you can see, there's blue back here. These trunks look a little bit blue. So I just made it a little bit warmer, and so that this looks a bit more neutral. And now I'm just going to add a little, some contrast, and then maybe punch the blacks up a little bit. Maybe bring shadows back up so that his face doesn't get too muddy, or her face. And yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know if that
I
looks...
think his, right? Because do the females get racks that big? I don't know.
Oh yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah, so...
Yeah.
So it just looks a little bit, there's a little bit more detail in there. It's a little bit punchier, and it doesn't look a whole lot different from the original. But you can make the argument that it looks even a little bit more 3D. And I'm gonna do one more thing that I do to all of my pictures, and it makes such a huge difference, is I sharpen them a lot.
Now, you do have to be careful if you're going to put it up on Facebook, because you can start to get a little over sharpened. Facebook does additional sharpening. I felt like the back here now. I'm control the mouse. The back was a little too sharp. No? You're happy still?
Well, again, it's a JPEG image that has been, downsized, so it's going to look a lot more dramatic when I do it here. But if you have the original, it won't look as dramatic. But I think, it makes a huge difference.
Now, you mentioned, I mean, let's take this the next step and just say, you mentioned cloning this path out. Is that something that you would do here in Lightroom?
No, I would do it. I would do it in Photoshop.
Yeah.
It would not only take a really long time in Lightroom, but it would also...
I just want to show people real quick that just one of the reasons why it's really nice to have both Photoshop and Lightroom, and that $9.99 a month deal gets you, is that you can, watch, I just right-clicked and said edit in Photoshop. I'm right in Photoshop now. We're not going to go into this because that's not the purpose of this assignment, this critique. But you can just kind of come in here and sample and clone out a little bit and work your way through that. All right, thanks. We have one from Tijuana, Mexico. So the first thing that strikes out to me is the use of repeating pattern here, or repeating lines, that I think adds strength to this image. We're looking down this hallway, marketplace, with these kind of iron braces. That's good. I like that. And then at the end of it is something interesting. We're getting a glimpse into something, but it's a little hard to tell what's going on down there. We can zoom in and, a fountain. I think it's funny. This woman here seems to be, she's toasting us, but I don't think she's really aware that we're all the way down here taking this picture. And then some people, and it starts to feel a little distracting down there. And when I zoom back out, my eye is still caught on this half person here, which is kind of white and catching the light. So let me go back to what I like. The girders here in this repeating line, that's good. I'm not a fan of the busyness happening down here with this person cut off and the treatment to this image. And by treatment, I mean that it's not quite black and white. It's very desaturated, so there's very little color in it, but we still have this feeling of this kind of purple and green cast to it, which I don't think works well. I think either leave it color, and it might have been messy color, but I think that could have been interesting as well, or go all the way black and white.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you about the treatment. And there's a lot of repeating patterns, and there's a lot of symmetry as well, which do a really good job of kind of toning down the busyness of this image. Um, there's a ton going on, but yeah, I mean, I would really like to see this as a black and white. I'm not liking the treatment and the purple tint very much at all. That's better, I think.
It's better. It's a little contrasty. I picked the black and white high contrast. It's a preset built in. We'd be more likely to just do it on our own and lower the contrast a little bit, but I think that this presents a better image. We don't have that cast of, I don't know if purple is the right
Yeah,
color,
no,
but
I
there's
think that's
purple
the
and
color I
green.
was
Yep.
thinking.
Otherwise, and also this is one of those situations where I think I would wait for this person to move. And this person's okay because they're completely in the frame. And now that it's black and white, it's even darker over here, and we've lost that, and I think that's fine as well. So take a couple of shots. Another option, if you had a tripod, is to do a slightly longer exposure, so people moving through the scene would be blurred or completely gone, and just because they don't stay in one place long enough to be captured on the sensor. And I think that would be another approach as well.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. So I think this next image really sets the scene well. It's a nice kind of environmental portrait because it's got a person that is the main subject matter, but really we can tell where they are, even though the background has this nice bokeh effect to it that you can often get with, I think it was the 50 millimeter f1.8, the nifty 50. And that's all good. It does look a little crooked to me.
It does, yeah.
Yep, okay. But those, I like that. But then I was looking a little bit more closely at our main subject here and noticing they're a little soft.
We're having some issues today with our mouse is acting up.
Super touchy. A little soft. And then I noticed that your exposure is 1.3 seconds. So that is impressive that this person stood that still for 1.3 seconds. But they, because it isn't terribly soft, but it certainly is a little soft, and a little bit of movement in the hair here and stuff, that's fine. But so then I think, well, f2.2 with the 50 nifty 50, it is not always the sharpest lens. But, I think focus is off a little bit. And it either may have been how you focused, or maybe the lens is just off a little bit, as sometimes they are, and it takes a little bit of practice to learn that and account for it when shooting. But focus should be a little more here, and it feels like it's a little bit more back here. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit behind where your target. The other thing that I'm not crazy about is the light in the eyes, but I don't have a good solution for that. Maybe Christina, you can suggest something. I don't want to use the word dead, because that's...
they definitely don't look dead.
They don't look dead, but they don't have... Even though there's light there, it doesn't have life to me. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. So I would like to go back first to the issue about the shutter speed and the focus, and you were saying that it kind of looks like it's back focusing a little bit on on the hair back there. And I just like to say that if you have an image that isn't super sharp, that the eyes aren't super in focus, it's an image that you really like, don't get bogged down by the technical detail and still use it anyway. Because you can just like I did with the previous image, you can just add some detail.
2 images ago, the
Two
elk.
images ago, the elk, yeah. You can just add a little bit of detail, and then nobody will ever know that, like, the photo was out of focus.
That's a really good point. Similar to, I didn't really know. I felt like it looked a little soft, but again, printed at a 4x6.
Yeah, I mean that's plenty of detail right there.
Yep.
I that the lighting on the eyes does create a very funny optical illusion for me. The eyes don't look like like he's looking at you. It looks like I can't really tell where he's looking based on the catch lights. So what I might do is I might just try to take them out and see what that looks like. But then the eyes might really look dead then. So maybe just tone them down a little bit. Otherwise, I really love, there's really nice light coming from here. I'm wondering if you added that light, if you added some warm light, because it's very directional and it's placed at a very, we don't know what's over here, so it's not.
I assume that the street, and we can look down there and see that there is a lot of light coming from down on the street. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's being used here is natural light from the street.
Yeah, it may be. So I'm not totally certain, so I'm just wondering.
Okay.
And I would just give a little bit more room to breathe. I'm gonna just assume that since this was taken at 1 second, that you were using a tripod. Otherwise, this photo would be pretty blurry. Or you were stabilizing the camera somehow.
Yeah.
So I would just, if you're using a tripod or some sort of stabilizer and you can do it, I would just take the time to go ahead and straighten the photo and then make sure that your composition is golden. If you wanted to take this picture to the next level, instead of cropping it, I would just, and I say instead of cropping it because Toby was about to crop it just now, I would just move a little bit to the left, and then his head would be framed between these two buildings right here. So his head would be
Subjects
right here.
left are right, correct?
Yeah. Our left.
Our left. You want him right here.
No, if the photographer were to move to the left a little bit.
Okay.
Or have the subject move to the right a little bit.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. To line up in that space there.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
So watch for your compositions and watch for your background and see if you can fit your subject into like a little nook in the background. I think that really, it really takes your images to a whole new level of just being very clean and just clean, I guess.
Great. All right. Thank you. So now we got an image from Jeff here, and I can see from the file name, it's Sigma 18, I think you meant to say 18 to 35, yes, down here. Midnight Canadian Rockings, untouched JPEG, so this is straight out of the camera. And, we've done several of these type of images, so we do feel like, we could start to get really repetitive as we were talking about at the beginning, and other kind of longer exposures with water and stars and clouds and things of that sort. But, this is a neat image. There's an interesting dynamic here, which I can't decide how I feel. We've got very sharp kind of defined cloud over here on the left, and then over here on the right it really feels like this was a long exposure and that cloud was really moving, and well, it was a 30-second exposure. And we can also see, because of that 30-second exposure, that the stars are no longer dots, they are streaks, and some a little bit longer than others, depending on how far away you are from the center point. Is that true when they move further? Well, anyway. So I just want to remind people about the 500 rule, which is basically your shutter speed for having stars as dots should be your focal length. 500 divided by your focal length gives you the longest before they're going to start to turn into dots. Some people use 600 as a little bit safer. And I I think in an image like this, it's okay, but I think it might be a little bit stronger if the exposure had been a little bit shorter and you'd gone a little bit higher with your ISO, because as I said, these are starting to be noticeable streaks over there. I really like the silhouette of these trees along here. What focal length? You're at 20. I like that. That's interesting. I think that you were trying to frame the scene between these two hills here, but there's not a lot of interesting stuff going on. And I think in this red light here, it's all natural, and then we've got a very bright tower or something over there. So I think going to 35 and picking an area within this image to capture the silhouettes, maybe even a portrait style that captures the silhouettes against the clouds and shows some of the stars in the sky above, would make a stronger image.
Yep. I don't think I have much more to add about this image.
Okay.
This is a really cool image. It almost looks photoshopped, like you photoshopped this into a clean background. Is it photoshopped?
I don't think it is. I think it is very, I mean, I agree. Fantastic image.
I'm not saying that that would be,
a bad thing.
A bad thing at all. It just looks so clean, and I'm wondering about this. Were these lights, or did you just like brush on some? It's really awesome. It's super cool.
Yep, I agree. Capture time 6:33 a.m. So we could have, at that time, we could have some sunlight on this building. It does look quite directional. And in the black and white treatment, the sky could still be dark off in that direction, opposite where the sun is rising. Really nicely lit. We've got a perfectly symmetrical image.
Sorry,
that works really well. Go ahead.
I wonder if it's maybe an infrared image. No, because the sky would look lighter unless it was nighttime.
Yeah, I need to get Allie's infrared interview up for people to watch. Yeah, I think so. And 150 seconds at f8. So almost 2 minutes, which also that's where I think we get that really smooth sky.
Yep. Uh-huh.
I don't have anything to say other than just fantastic image.
Done.
I hope you've shared this on 500 Pics and other places and gotten great feedback, because you deserve it. A really nice, clean shot that I'm going to call perfect.
Yep.
Love it. Thank you, Christoph.
And that's the last one.
That's the last one. There's no more. I'm pressing the right arrow button. Don't you want to do a couple more?
I think we're good for today.
All right. So we'll have one more critique of this group. As I said, Penultimate. Yes, I learned that word recently. Actually, I've known it for a while, but it works.
Let's keep talking about that.
Let's keep talking about it. I'm going to make it the title of the show. Unless you can come up with a better one in the next 15 seconds.
Nope.
All right. Everybody, thanks so much for watching. As I said, we've got great plans for coming a portfolio/gallery critique. And again, always love to read your feedback down below about the pictures, about whether you want the show to be longer, shorter, more images, less images, about whether or not you want to pay us hundreds of dollars for doing these critiques. There is now ways to donate directly to this channel. There's a little button right over on the right, and you can use that. And always the thumbs up button is appreciated. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.